My girlfriend said that no one's gonna watch this video if I don't do any commentary on it, and I had no idea what to talk about for such a long video of me scrolling through cards, so I'm just gonna talk about my experience and my love for the game. I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh for what's essentially been my entire life, and one of my earliest memories was having one of those big holiday popcorn tins that you get from a Rite Aid or something. We washed it out to be my toy bucket, and I took the entire thing with me whenever my dad drove us to my cousin's house. And I remember being in the back seat feeling bored at maybe like 3 years old. I reached through all the action figures to grab my cards that were all the way at the bottom, and I pulled out a copy of Slifer the Sky Dragon. And I had no idea how I got it or what it even was, but I remember feeling something special staring at that card on the drive back home. I watched the anime with my oldest cousin at our grandma's house because she collected a couple of cards, but she didn't know how to play. My cousin, that is. And a local shop did sell us some fake cards, which wasn't a problem for a kid who didn't know any better. The problem was that the son of a bitch sold us Japanese cards, and since the rulebooks only came in the structure decks and Duelist Kingdom was the most confusing thing that we had ever watched, no one in the family could learn how to try and play with me. And when my dad made time to play with me and I start pulling rules out of my ass like a true duelist, they understandably said, "Eric, play by your fucking self." So I just sort of collected them for my first few years. Even when I made friends later on, since I spent so much time watching the shows to get my fix and learn my strategies, I've always been one of those nostalgia duelists who just needs to collect every card that my favorite character has played and the support that dropped for them later on. Monarchs meant nothing to me. I didn't know Crush Card was real until Gold Series, and making Synchron's good meant beating the only other 2 to 3 people I knew that played in my neighborhood. And the funny part is, since I didn't have money most of my life to buy so much as a single booster pack, I got most of my cards as gifts from other people. Since we're in this Duel Monsters era of cards right now in the video, the first real decks I remember playing were the horrible ass Rock Structure deck and a Spellcaster deck as well. Someone had once bought me a 2006 Spellcaster Judgment Structure, and I had a few other Spellcasters lying around, so that was the deck that I ran with. And it had 1900 Beat Sticks, Heavy Storm, Premature Burial, Tsukuyomi, Divine Wrath, Magic Cylinder. It was an insane deck that helped me run through the competition, especially once I added other generic monsters to it. I used to think that Magical Blast was the most broken card I had ever seen. And I also had the elusive Ultra Dark Magician Girl, and at some point I threw in a Winged Dragon of Ra that I found from God knows where. After that, it got stolen from me though. I took my strongest vanillas and whatever randoms pulls that I had and made a mashup of like a fusion and a synchro deck. I depended on top decking the Quick Draw Synchron for an easy synchro summon, and then when that went south, I abandoned the quote-unquote synchro half of my deck, and I relied, I kid you not, on the heart of the cards in order to pull off the fusion summon of the Last Warrior from another planet, or to get my trap card Skull Layer to either lock the opponent out of the game or to break their boards late into the game. I genuinely thought that I was the reincarnation of the Pharaoh and that I too could pull off any combo that I put my mind to simply by believing that I could draw into the cards that I needed when I needed them. And to my credit, it worked basically all of elementary school and middle school, so maybe I had the sauce after all. The Toon deck was fascinating to me, and it still is, because I think in some ways it was far ahead of its time. I remember being in 2nd grade trying to find my class and seeing a duel take place on the floor of the track, and they were arguing about if the boy playing Toons was cheating because he had never heard of special summoning. And although this was after Spell Ruler, most of us at the time still had magic cards, so even Monster Reborn didn't say special summon yet. It just said place it on your field. So in this guy's mind, you can only summon one monster every turn. For some reason they asked me what I thought even though we had never met, And I hadn't caught up to watching any of Pegasus's duels in the anime yet, but I realized that since the tunes said special summon and the rulebook only said that normal summons were once per turn, I guess that technically he was perfectly legal when he summoned 2 Toon Mermaids and a Toon Blue Eyes all in the same turn. The frustrated boy hated all of this, but he took it on the chin, and I whispered to him, just draw MST and you could beat this deck, and I ran off. But this interaction stuck with me. A deck that could summon multiple monsters in the same turn to take hits, stack damage, or meet a summoning requirement, or another monster. This, as far as I know, is the basis not just of the meta a whole decade after this happened, but the foundation of rush duels as well. Then the idea that a deck wanted a card with a certain name to just sit there was revolutionary too, because that's more or less what our field spells became, right? Or how our fusion decks operated, like the Cyber Dragons, who just want different names. And that duel taught me to pay attention to the specific phrasing of cards, even though I was so young. It also inspired me to want to know everything I could about the game's mechanics, so I spent every night after that reading the flavor text and effects of my entire collection, studying the rulebook until my parents found me passed out on a table every day with 100 cards laid out into really specific piles. And even after I was old enough to learn how horrible the tunes were, I learned that there was more to this game than just attack and defense points. And I wanted to master all those deeper layers of it. What you guys saw now were these sparkling cards on the screen, and these are some of the fake cards that I've kept throughout the years. I used to have about 300 fake cards, and honestly I threw out the most of them, or the majority of them I mean, because, you know, I finally got the real versions of them eventually. But I kept them because I either had really specific memories with those cards, like that Goblin Force that you saw a little bit ago. I used to give my friends really big trouble in high school when I finally put together a Merrick deck, and I threw that Goblin card in there because I just felt like it fit and I needed to hit the 40 card limit, you know. Or cards like this End of Anubis I kept because I felt like the ultra rare fakes that were going around were honestly way nicer than some of the ultra rares that we had in the actual card game. And even now, I just can't let go of whatever, you know, foil technology was being used in those kind of factories. I have no idea who was producing these cards. I have no idea how they ended up in so many different cities, on so many street corners that, you know, single moms were selling for anywhere from $1 to $5, but they were gorgeous. And to this day, there are still certain decks like this Cubic deck that, one, I love because I liked the mechanics of the deck, but two, I just love the rarity of them. And it was at this point in college when Cubics came out that I started to actually care a little bit about rarities and about the conditions of my cards. Even though I still couldn't afford, you know, $3 for some sleeves, I was still really, really poor in college. I don't know, something about shiny cardboard really changed something in me, and I almost have to question myself sometimes and say, like, are my values really in the right place? You know, was I really a more noble duelist as a child when, or not even as a child, but as an early teenager, when conditions didn't matter as long as I was able to play a deck, build a deck, complete a collection, and that was it? You know, back when I was less snobby about those things? Or am I a better duelist now because I choose to care about the condition because I want to preserve these cards and I want to preserve the impact that they've had at different points of history across this community, and I want to preserve what these cards mean to us, whether it's the artwork of these giant rat Medusa worms and this horrible rock deck I said I used to play, or whether it's the mighty abilities of the monarch monsters that you guys are probably going to see in a minute or two here, or if it's just I liked a red eyes, I couldn't afford a red eyes when I was 5, but now I'm 25 and I can fucking afford it now. So I have a red eyes and I need to keep it perfect. And when I ask myself these questions between the real and the fake, the mint and the damaged, I don't know. I really don't, but I don't know. I have a lot to thank Kazuki Takahashi for, because my cards have been there for a lot of my dark and scary times. Every one of these Monarch cards was a gift, for example, from a buddy that I met in the 3rd grade. When I was 18, I ended up homeless, and I just had a suitcase full of clothes and a bag for university, and his family let me stay with them. I wasn't particularly close with him because we didn't speak much growing up, but one day in his room that we both shared, I found one of his decks, and I couldn't allow myself to go homeless without bringing my decks with me too. We played and talked about support that he never knew existed, and I thrived off of the passion that I saw return to his eyes as he picked up his Fire Kings again and gave me mayhem every single night. Eventually, he gave me his other 2 decks to keep, which were the Monarchs and Gravekeepers, because while he loved them, I guess he just felt that I would appreciate them more. And that meant a lot to me because the Monarch structure had dropped around that time, so I was reinterested in that whole archetype, and Gravekeepers were getting support coincidentally too, and I had always wanted to be able to afford that deck. And this is also when Fire King Arvada had just released, and he even went and grabbed a job at a card shop after that. So during a time when I wasn't sure what I would eat, if I could finish school, or how long I'd have a roof over my head, we would set the number 8,000 on both of our calculators, and nothing else mattered but seeing his life points drop to 0. Now, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX is where so much more of my nostalgia lies, because while most of the cards I had collected in grade school were Duel Monsters era, Jaden was the protagonist I was raised on. And over the last 10 years, the amount of love shown to GX archetypes has been unreal. Never in my dreams would I have imagined owning the Sacred Beasts, or that the Advanced Crystal Beast would be printed as cards separate from just the regular Crystal family and a Dark Field spell. Let alone how affordable these cards would be. So if you showed me these effects back in 2010 and said they're getting printed tomorrow, first of all, they would be so powerful stacked up against I drew Gore's turn 1, so I'm gonna pass my turn. And secondly, I would have thought they would be $3 to $10 cards, not 3 to 10 cent ultra and secret rares. Sure, the power creep in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is real, and that can be a problem both for the competitive and the casual player alike, especially online. But when you take your pet decks pure, without the generic support that they could be running today, and you think about time traveling with those decks, the way that they would ruin the game is paralleled only by Pepe and OCG 1999 Exodia. They might have come a bit too late to make even a small splash, but they come during the only eras they could exist in without costing an arm and a leg. That goes a million miles for the players like me who only had $5 to $10 and, you know, couldn't make an income, or were too young to generate an income, or didn't have enough income for extra spending money after your bills. That sort of thing means the world to us. And they heal my inner child, having the power of Duel Academy like I could have never imagined. And speaking of which, the Crystal Beasts were a fascinating deck because I had only met one person who owned them, and that was back in the 6th grade. So to all of us, they were just as rare as in the show because none of us had seen these cards in person before, right? And the kid who played them was someone that I spoke to from time to time because I was friends with his cousins, but he was heavily bullied. He was picked on for how he looked, the way he spoke, how intelligent people thought he was or wasn't, and all of that. And I had bad judgments of him before I had even really met him. But then when I did meet him, he sits down with all these shiny crystal monsters of legend, and he even had a Ghost Rare Rainbow Neo signed by Jaden's voice actor, and I never thought another duelist was as cool as that to me even now. And then he had this whole Malefic deck, buying out all the packs that he could from the movie premiere. He had some Destiny heroes, which I had not seen in person before either. Crazy stuff. Sweepstake giveaway cards. We drifted apart after like 2 years when I moved schools, but I credit that person not just for making me realize how much I loved the GX and 5Ds eras over Duel Monsters, but for sparking my passion for collecting these cards in a way I never did before. I was legit, as a grown-ass man, sitting around one day when I remembered the time he invited me over and showed me his collection and thinking, I need something even cooler than that. And that started with normal summoning Amethyst Cat, playing Crystal Tree, and setting 3 back row. And these Destiny heroes have a special place in my heart as well for similar inspirational reasons with collecting, because of the time that I went to my very first locals. I had a friend in high school who took me and paid for me because I couldn't afford it, and at the time I was running a 50 card Synchron deck with like 20 trap cards in it, right? And I couldn't compete with anybody there, but I did get a game in casually after the tournament with somebody who loved collecting the Destiny heroes, and he showed me his binder, and I was like, man, I need to collect heroes too, right? And I wanted everything. I wanted the alternate art vanilla heroes, I wanted the Destiny heroes, and I traded some of the elemental hero fusions that I had and the Destiny heroes cards that I did have at the time, because I was opening duelist packs at a pet store that also sold Yu-Gi-Oh cards, trying to rebuild my GX collection from childhood that had got stolen from me. I know that was kind of a mix of like 2 or 3 different stories, but anyways, I met this Destiny hero lover, and I never forgot that one and only time that I had met him. And fast forward to, you know, maybe a year later in high school, right? Dragon rulers are banned by this point, and we get the hero strike structure deck with Shadow Mist and all these manga masked hero supports, and I lost my mind. We had not only that, but we had these, I don't know if it was called Cybernetic, no, not Revolution. I don't remember the name of the Cyber Dragon structure deck, but those were also moments that, thanks to that person that I met at a store that I don't think even exists anymore, also helped inspire my love for collecting these cards, you know, my love for going out there and looking for every one of these cards that I used to think was incredibly rare and hard to find, because all I ever did was open up packs, right? Cards that people were gonna end up running one day, like the Bubble Man, which I never would have seen coming with the Frog deck in the Arc 5 era, right? Cards like the King of the Swamp that used to cost $5 to $10 a piece, even for a common. Cards that, oh, I didn't even know at the time that you could collect cards from other countries and that they would be playable in tournaments as long as you have translations. And now that we have things like, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Neuron, you know, the dream is really real. And as they come out and continue to create new support for all these old archetypes that I've always wanted, or archetypes that I've owned but could never actually make a, you know, competent deck out of, they just keep that love going. And while some people, I guess understandably, complain about all the nostalgia bait that the company does, there's a purpose to it, right? Maybe it's not to make the deck competitive, but maybe it's because they take a minute to step into the shoes of filthy casuals like myself and say, how are people like this going to afford these old cards that we don't produce anymore? Let's go ahead and reproduce them. Let's go ahead and reintroduce them. Let's reinvent the way that you traditionally played this deck. And yeah, okay, you can't take it to a local the way that you would like to take it to a local, you know, on some fun, casual, let me try out this deck type of stuff, but it's important. It's important nonetheless. There's so many different layers to this game, and just because it's not a level that you exist at doesn't mean that it shouldn't exist, because these are valuable moments for the rest of us. Speaking of valuable moments, the Cyber Dark deck really sticks out to me as well, and also piggybacking off of inspiring me to collect cards, because I had some nice memories with this deck with Brandon, you know, one of the original 3 co-founders of this YouTube channel that you're checking out right now. Brandon, for the entire time since we had started this channel, had lived in another city, hundreds of miles away from all of us. We were all hundreds of miles apart from each other, and we would only see him, Ivan and I would only see him about once a year, and if even that, because I think there was a year where he had to go on vacation somewhere to see family in another country, so we didn't get to visit him. But then in, I want to say 2021, maybe 22, he had left that university and he came back home. So we got to spend a lot more time together while he was trying to figure out if he wanted to do school in this city instead, or, you know, if he just wanted to go work and say fuck it, because he just wasn't satisfied with the education he was receiving. And we both had money and time, and, you know, I took him to a card shop, and he was like, holy crap, like, the art style of so many of these cards is super nostalgic to me. He's like, I don't know what these things do. I've never known the name of some of these cards, but he's like, I remember some of them. And speaking of Brandon, you know, these 6 Samurai cards were also a gift from him way back in the day when we were 13. And I had visited his house for the very first time, and his mom had left us food because she was working 2 jobs, and he introduced me to the Naruto video game on the PlayStation, the Ultimate Ninja Storm 3, for the very first time. And when I left, he gave me the 6 Samurai deck. And so going back to that, so many years later, I took him to his first card shop, and, you know, he got a little bit interested in the game, and I was teaching him how to play a little bit. And I took him to Little Tokyo in Los Angeles because the Cyberdark structure had just dropped, and I got myself like 2 copies. He only wanted 1 box, and we were practicing with the deck for a little bit before he finally found some work and got busy with that. But yeah, I really miss those times. Now, 5Ds is nostalgic to me too in a very different way from GX, because while I grew up watching both shows, I related to this one so much more. It's the first time that I can recall seeing poverty on television, or at least in a way that it was in my face, because I'm not a critical thinker when I watch TV. Driving was cool to me because I was so poor that having a car seemed like an impossible status of wealth to me. So the fact that these satellite residents were not just people who taught themselves how to drive, but rode motorcycles of all things and did my favorite thing in the world every day, it spoke to me so hard. I was the target audience through and through. Some of them didn't have families, and due to problems at home, I felt like I didn't either, or there were a lot of relatives I was never allowed to be around for stupid reasons. As a Native American who was never taught anything about my people or my culture, I resonated with the Zero Momentum incident causing mass genocide. I thought about how many cultural elements of the world were lost forever, so that made me cry every time they referenced it. When I had issues with my friends, I thought back to Team Satisfaction's problems with either Callan or Jack. I was starting to feel failed by the education system at the time, and I was heavily anti-college at this point in my life, so seeing the characters accomplish and achieve so much for themselves without any education or food or money inspired me to chase my dreams too. Even the way I dressed was being influenced by the show. The first time that I saw Crow or Yusei in a black tank top without their jackets on, I begged my mom to buy me tank tops, and now 14 something years later, that's what I became known for in every town I've ever stayed in, visited, whatever. 6th grade is where I met friends that I would have until adulthood thanks to Yu-Gi-Oh! Some of you who've been here for a while might remember my Honor for Goner series, where I posted Yu-Gi-Oh! Videos for my friend's birthday, and that's because he was a huge Blackwing fan. when we split up in high school, because, you know, I went to another school, I would meet other powerful Blackwing duelists that I would take on with my Stardust Dragon that Goner gave me as a gift when we first met. And I would always compare them to him and teach him their strategies later on when we, you know, started dueling more and more often. And my friends and I used to dream of how we would be the first people to bring duel runners to life. One wanted to go study engineering, so he thought like, hey, you know, I could help figure out the technology and all of that stuff, all the complicated, expensive stuff. And as an engineer, you know, I can make this and this much money, and I could really help fund this program of ours, this dream of ours, and we could get rich off of something like this, you know. And I had the idea of taking the software that they used to make the DS World Championship games that we loved so much, and saying, hey, you know, here we have a foundation with a card pool already established. Let's use this as the basis for the monitors that they have built into the duel runners. And they were like, well, you know, we'd have to invent the first vehicle with TVs. And I was doing music, and I had shot a music video for the first time around that time. And somebody loaned us a Cadillac that we got to use. And I was like, no, like, that technology is actually old. There are cars already, there are vehicles already that have little TV monitors in them. This is no different. You would just be making a bigger glass screen and all of that, you know? So I was like, this is gonna be a revolutionary part of how we figure this all out. And I also thought that maybe I could go to trade school or something, right? To learn how to build and maintain a motorbike, since I wanted to build one from scratch someday anyways, and it's still on my bucket list. And our other friend Goner was just vibes, but he always had $1 ramen for us to eat when we were starving and suffering from the heat waves all summer, right? He always had a roof for us to be under to escape our personal problems. And he was always a buddy to battle with on the floor, on the tabletop, in the park, on a bench somewhere, wherever, literally wherever we could duel. He was there. And if it was just a one-on-one game, then, you know, the third one of us would set up a little shield with our body and the backpack so that if it was a little windy that day, we wouldn't lose our precious cards. And if a card flew off, the third person was always like, no, you know, you sit there, you continue the duel, don't get distracted in a duel ever. And we would, whoever the third person was, would go running off ourselves to go collect all the cards that, you know, got lost. And the joy that was brought to us from this part of our lives, especially, you know, once I started to really feel the effects of my depression, these were the happiest days that I had ever lived. And Synchro Monsters gave me friends that kept me fed when we didn't have school to do that for us. When I didn't have school to do that for us. It literally saved my life. When we got to high school and my only friend with a debit card wanted to buy me cards for my birthday, or whatever, he only had to buy the cheapest pieces of cardboard available. I wasn't trying to go, you know, head to head with Madolce or Dragon Rulers at our locals. I didn't want to save up $20, $30 for a Blackluster Soldier because I already had a fake copy and my friends were okay with me using my fake cards because they knew I was poor. So they can just go ahead and instead spend $5 like total to buy me one of every Neospatian, or to buy me a bunch of different Synchrons and tuners that I needed. And to me, it was like, holy crap, like, you have no idea how rare these are, and they're just commons and rares. And I'm like, you have no idea how rare these cards are to pull. They're not even in the same set. It would cost so much money trying to pull all of these cards, and you got one of every single one for me. Falling so in love with these character decks that I someday just kind of wanted to complete. Maybe I didn't even want to run them. But falling in love with them meant that I was an easy person to buy cards for. So when my birthday or Christmas came around, even though I was too poor to give them literally anything, the two friends in my group would put money together, right? Goner would give cash to the guy who had a debit card, and then they'd place an order. I think this is when we discovered TCG Player for the first time, which was so much more affordable than buying damaged cards on eBay, so that made it even sweeter. They didn't care that I couldn't get them anything. They would say, pay us back by building this version of the hero deck that you've never been able to build before. Or go duel Andy in the park next week and use these cards to kick his ass on our behalf. Or even show us that genius that we love you for and come up with the combos that only you can invent. Take these cards that we all think are useless and show us what they're capable of. They would say, show us why you're the best duelist. That's your gift to us for Christmas. And I just really loved them for that. A lot took place in the Zexal era too, and those were fascinating times where a lot had changed. It was a culture shock for us because we didn't have access to card shops like that. At this time, we only knew one card shop, and it was like a 30-minute walk for us with no shade during some hot years. So we all mostly just had synchro decks. By this point, Jonathan was meeting with me along with the guy who went on to help me with homelessness later, and it turned out that John was also friends with another classmate of mine from elementary. So John's group and my group would meet in Burger King, and two people would buy fries so we could hang out for an hour without the cops getting called, and it was synchros versus Xyz more or less because he picked up the Steel Swarm deck at this time and the windups as well. Eventually, at this time, our aspiring engineer with a debit card brought the Utopia deck with him. And I didn't watch Zexal because I didn't have consistent internet access like that, and we all despised the dubbing. No offense. So once he had all these Dijin monsters and rank ups, and especially the Zexal weapons, the balance and power changed drastically. My deck of random cards I was hoping to draw together weren't always good enough anymore. I'm grateful though because this is what got me into looking for different tech cards, trying to plan counters to the decks that my friends were using, namely Fire King and Ghost Tricks. And the majority of the cards you're seeing now, I didn't end up getting until years later as a college student when Link Monsters hit the scene. Then the STEM major fell in love with the Galaxy Eyes deck, and he became a truly horrifying opponent. We played lots of free-for-all duels, but he was often someone we had to all form an alliance against in order to stand a chance because with the right hand, his deck was just that much better. Even once I finally built a more consistent and cohesive deck myself. Some of my friends were able to pick up part-time work, so we were spending more time walking to the shop and watching each other open packs. I was digging through dumpsters to recycle, so by the end of the month I could open up a booster pack of something. And Battles of Legend, both the first and second one, were available at the time, and I had pulled Timaeus and Mirror Force Dragon, each in only a single pack with the only $10-11 that I managed to save up in my free time outside of classes. Blackwings got new support, I fell in love with Performer Pals for a bit, and they were memorable times for all of us because we were growing not just as duelists and competitors, but we were growing as people alongside our decks as well. Truly gorgeous times. The Pendulum era was another one like I had never experienced. Dueling Book and Dueling Network got shut down by Konami, and in my first year of college, I was not only 300 miles from everything I've ever known, but I was somewhere caught between a new middle-class lifestyle and the poorest I'd ever been as a poverty-stricken kid who made it to a UC at 17. I had so many experiences I've never forgotten still, but my memories of this game were the most unique in this time period. I had found the only Yu-Gi-Oh club on campus, and to my surprise, it was hosted by the first competitive players that I had ever met. They weren't just competitive duelists, but they were top 16 players. One was a man named Ryan who played Pepe, his roommate played Frogs featuring E-Hero Bubbleman, and the person I looked at as both a mentor and a rival was Daniel Zool. He had an apartment near my dorms, and we would spend about 4+ hours every single time having my character decks go up against some of the strongest decks that I could have ever imagined. Unfortunately, I couldn't find proof of his tournament top, but he had a Blood Memphis prize card in his deck, as well as a trophy that he proudly displayed from time to time. Here was the closest thing I could find online about his success in the game. Point being, the guy was really nice, and it opened up my eyes to a world beyond just playing with my friends or being salty online duelists. And Daniel and Ryan weren't snobs either. Sometimes they naturally wondered, why would you play this? But other times they would say, dude, no one plays this trap card anymore. Holy crap, that was really effective. Or, I can see what you were going for here. You really thought this out. This was really well done. It just didn't stack up for you this time. And Daniel in particular said he saw a lot of skill in the way that I piloted my various $30 decks. I was also inspired to host my own club, where I hosted a tournament with a custom ban list that allowed the most powerful decks in Yu-Gi-Oh's history to come full force, so that I could dive headfirst into why these people loved their version of Yu-Gi-Oh so much. I introduced people to the game and to new strategies. I made friends that got me through one of the toughest years of my mental health. I found a source of confidence when I competed in their draft tournaments, and I found a source of inspiration that still pushes me over 6 years later. So wherever you guys are now, the UC Santa Cruz Dueling Club from 2016, more or less, give or take, thank you for all that you did, every single one of you. And if any of you are seeing this now, let's get another game sometime soon. But before we move on to the next era of the card game, we have to talk about one more story of mine. I mentioned that Daniel was the person who encouraged me the most. Around this time, the Kaiba and Yugi structure decks had just been released, and I had just enough pocket change to buy some off of somebody else. And a short while north of us, there was going to be a YCS held in San Jose. And some of the club members were urging me to go with them because they said I would gain loads from, having that sort of experience under my belt. However, for one, I didn't drive. Secondly, I had spent my only $30-40 on some structure decks, and lastly, even if I could afford a Greyhound, I wouldn't have made it on time. So Daniel offered to pay my fees for either the main or the side event, whichever one I chose to participate in, and Ryan was driving us, so we had a carpool already organized to San Jose. I sent a message home to my friends about the news, and they were equally excited on my behalf because they believed in my ability to just go do something on a main stage that hadn't been considered yet. I went through every single card and deck that I owned and was planning on bringing my Cyber Dragon deck because I felt that was the most relevant thing at the time. But of course, I couldn't afford any copies of Infinity. I believe it was like $50 a piece. So I was at an overwhelming disadvantage against other Cyber Dragon players already. But with my new Kaiba structure deck, I had planned to run a small ABC package so that I had an engine that could do a little bit of deck thinning, and it would give me good interruption along with keeping all the monsters in my main deck within the light machine parameters. However, we had to leave even earlier than usual because of an incident that had taken place on the highway in the midst of construction. There was a collapse on the road. So the highway would no longer be accessible to us on the way. I had insomnia though, so I was feeling like, and I reassured everyone else in the group that I would be up at 5 in the morning when they could come and pick me up. But at 4:47, my body had said 3 days of no sleep is far too many, and I crashed. I woke up at 8 a.m. with the Cyber Dragon stuck to my face. My roommate had already taken off to class. I had 7 missed calls, and I had to break the news to my friend. It's funny now, but it sucked at the moment. But I got the opportunity to make a lot more friends as I met people who were interested in the card game, and I taught them Yu-Gi-Oh! They taught me Magic and D&D, and I watched them open packs and get really excited. And so by the time I made it back to Los Angeles, I actually managed to get my first job, and I was able to buy sleeves and deck boxes for the very first time. And the card that you're seeing here is a card signed by someone who was my favorite YouTuber of all time at this time, Simply Unlucky, because I was able to buy the Kaiba Corp edition deck box and sleeves, you know, those really expensive ones that go for $50 a piece now. And that was awesome because I finally, at this same time, had my very first debit card. And yeah, you know, it was really great. I didn't know that he signed product, and the signature itself, he's not a celebrity. It's not worth anything monetarily, but you know, just the sentimental value behind that is pretty cool to me still. I still have the card.
The Link era was a really different era in my time enjoying the game. You know, it started off with that structure deck with Decode Talker in it, and my friend Goner and I were both really excited to get it, so we went down to Little Tokyo, which is a Japanese neighborhood where they have a official sponsored card shop, and I bought one for each of us, you know, and we went to go grab some ramen, and the owners of the restaurant were nice enough to actually, I believe we played a game in the booths while we waited for the food, just to get a handle on how the new summoning mechanic was going to work, because I had spent time the night before trying to understand it and get some practice with it, and we thought it was really cool. And honestly, we felt like it was a big reset button for the game. We had a lot of hope for it, mostly because Goner was one of the people who was very, very happy that pendulum summoning had been killed as a mechanic, and we were unfortunately sad that a lot of other decks got restricted because of Master Rule 3, but we were still just trying to be really optimistic about it all. And we had some really fun games, and over time he started really putting together his Cyberse deck. Time passes and I got the Rocket Structure deck, you know, and so I started trying to build that together alongside my own take on the Cyberse deck, and we had some really, really great duels together, and he really kept me interested in the game, especially because, you know, I was never a person who went to tournament stores like that. And as I fell more in love with the Playmaker character, you know, throughout some of the time that it was on TV, I had a couple of hardships in my personal life because of things I was going through with my job, things that I had, like drama that I had with other people that were important to me in my life. And this was the era that I really depended on Yu-Gi-Oh again, even though I was a fully grown adult, you know? And some of these cards I picked up thanks to Jonathan. There were a couple of times, you've seen one of them in a vlog video I posted on the channel. There were times where, you know, he'll go ahead and drive me somewhere, and if he had a little bit of money, he would buy something for me that I didn't already have or that I wasn't purchasing for myself. We have another friend, Eric with a K. You guys probably remember him from the Pokemon Unbound live streams. Eric with a K would occasionally, hey, your birthday's coming up, what cards do you want, and I'm gonna buy them for you. Hey, you know, Christmas is around the corner, what cards do you want, and I don't care what the price is, you know, I'll pick it up for you. And so really, even in this era where I wasn't dueling a lot of my friends anymore, they were busy with work and balancing school full-time as college students at the same time, you know, or some of my friends had moved away. Jonathan at this period of time moved to another city. So even though I wasn't dueling them anymore, I was still really building my collection thanks to my friends. And when they would make time to come visit me, and they saw how big my collection had grown over all these years, all these different eras of monsters that I'm showing you, these new support cards for these old strategies that you guys have seen through some of, you know, some of this video here, they would have so much fun playing it again, because no matter what version of Yu-Gi-Oh they enjoyed, except for, you know, some meta stuff, we would be able to sit down and just have a ball and live in this childhood level of excitement with some of these brand new shiny cards I would pick up, with some of these nostalgic beat up really horrible condition cards that I've been using since I was a child, and just having those fun moments together actually helped inspire me to collect even more, because I'll buy a card like this Mud Dragon, say, and I'm like, oh, I could use this in a strategy with my Synchro deck, and I'm gonna pull it off in a combo the next time that I see them, and they're gonna be so amazed, it's gonna be so impressed. And that was really it, you know. I was just trying to show off with my friends. Made me feel good, it got them a little excited, and yeah. Now here in this section, after the Link of Rains, I have a couple of different generic cards from different eras. These are, I guess you could call them staple monster cards, right? And it's not the most organized thing, and you can definitely argue there are other staples that I left in some of the other collection, but you know, I spent so many days organizing this and taking apart so many different decks and unsleeving things. I really didn't care if one or two small things were out of place or out of order, like that Honest, for example. I just really wanted this to be put together. But yeah, this is actually something that I never thought that I would have, because there were a lot of different times where I just couldn't afford to purchase any cards. It was really, really unfortunate. So because of that, there was lots of things like Effect Veiler back in the day that I was never able to pick up. And so if my friends had one, like I had a friend named Brolio who I dueled a lot throughout high school, he would have Effect Veiler and he would completely shit all over me, you know, because what am I gonna do about it? And as my friends were able to pick up the Salomon Great Structure deck, and they would pick up 3 copies, and I'm like, damn, I just, I don't have the money for it right now. Bills are tight or whatever, and I'm paying for my student loans. It was unfortunate, but it inspired me to wanna be better at the game and improve my strategies that much more. So they really drove me in a competitive sense, and I appreciate that. So now we're gonna take a look at my ritual monsters, followed by my extra deck. And man, when you talk about nostalgia with cards like this, cards like Relinquish, that I, again, just never thought that I was ever gonna be able to own. Especially because for a while I was buying packs, and especially when you buy from a small mom and pop shop, they don't have a lot of different packs, or they're not going to be carrying random stuff from, there goes my fake cards that I really love the artwork of. Those Shinados are beautiful. But yeah, they're not going to have really old stuff the way that a really big OTS like Core TCG might carry. So you kind of just get what you get, and you only have a small limited card pool that you can build from to begin with. Again, especially because a lot of cards that I had, I didn't have a debit card when I had them, so I couldn't do online purchasing. So the majority of the cards that are in the extra deck section, especially the fusions and the links, some of the Xyz as well, these are all newer cards. And this deck, the cubic deck, oh man, I believe I've already told you guys about it, but I had a really, really fun time playing with all of my friends, and they were intimidated to go against cubics because their decks couldn't really touch it that way. But it made for days where I was this dramatic raid boss duelist. They would all get together and we'd have a free-for-all game where they're all trying to take me on at the same time. That was good stuff. And that actually was a product of being inspired by the more powerful cards that they would pick up every once in a while. Being inspired to try to play stronger versions of my strategy, more relevant, tournament-ready type of cards, like your Ash Blossoms and your Nibiru's and whatnot. And especially once that one Megatim came out, where I pulled a Nibiru out of, I think it was the Prismatic Rare, that really, really drove me. And this Cyberdark Dragon, this misprint one that you're seeing here, is another time that I really bonded with my friends, because Brandon had finally came home from university. He had moved to a completely different city. This misprint is a result of that as well. You can see that the blue isn't supposed to be there on the original, and it's actually the image of the other fusion monster. So the blue section on Cyber and Dragon is actually the image of the Cyber Dark superimposed on top of it. Really trippy stuff. But in any case, Brandon had moved several hundreds of miles away for university, and initially I did too, until I had to come back to Los Angeles and I continued my studies here. And we would unfortunately only see him once a year for Christmas, I believe it was. So, we saw him twice for 2 years, but on that 3rd year, he finally came back home and he moved back to Los Angeles. And while he was waiting to try to find some work, I got him into Yu-Gi-Oh a little bit too, and I took him to Little Tokyo again, and that he introduced me to the neighborhood. I introduced him to the card game and where to buy cards in that neighborhood. And we bought that, what was currently at the time, a brand new Cyber Dragon structure deck. And I bought 2 for me. I bought 1 for him because that's all he wanted, and I pulled those misprint cards, and he pulled a misprint as well. It was really, really cool. I believe they were selling for like $20 or something when I had looked them up. But yeah, and here you're seeing my favorite section of the fusion monsters, all my different hero fusions, the elemental heroes, the Neos fusions, the masked heroes. Heroes are definitely, I would say, my favorite deck of all time. And while I have an equal love for the Synchron deck, they just didn't hold up the same way that Heroes did. You know, as much as I would love it, they you know, die to a single Ash Blossom. It's very, very unfortunate. And their combos are crazy. Their combos are insane, so I want to love it more. But, you know, whether it's casual play, something a little intermediate, or whether it's go to a tournament and try to snag a win out of everyone in the room, Heroes are kind of the deck that I go to. And this here is my Electrum that I actually pulled from a McDonald's pack way back in the day. It was really cool because it was the only, not the only card. At the time, I feel like it was the only card that I wanted to pull was the Electrum because it was brand new. It wasn't available in any booster packs. So that was what I was looking for, and I was happy. And you can see I loved that card. I used it a whole lot of times. It was some really great stuff. I was the only person that I knew who had a copy of Electrum. I was really, really proud of it. I will say that I was kind of sad when I went to McDonald's though, because every McDonald's was also supposed to be hosting some sort of Yu-Gi-Oh tournament, and mine did not host it. They canceled it. So that was a shame. I would have loved to play and meet some of the kids in my neighborhood because I had no idea who played other than 2 or 3 people at my school. But yeah, fusions were some of my favorite decks ever, and I have a really deep love for them. Now, another era of card that I have a deep love for are the Synchro Monsters, because 5Ds, for the longest time, and maybe still, but it was my favorite show out of all the different Yu-Gi-Oh spin-offs. I would go back to it maybe 2 or 3 more times to rewatch it, which is something that I never do. I never rewatch a show that I've completed, but there was just some magic here, you know? And as I got older and I was able to really digest the media better, and I was understanding the themes of classism, right? The themes of genocide, the evil that a government body can do to an entire nation and its people. Well, you had Bomber, or I don't remember his English name, Greiger, I think, but you had the genocide that he was a victim of, all this manipulation, and it was some really intense stuff. And they really steered away from kids need to be able to just have fun in the way that they did with GX, but I was a fan of the darker and more serious notes that I didn't get to really, I guess, acknowledge or experience with GX or DM. Even though they were there, they were present, I don't know. With 5Ds, it definitely felt a lot more in my face. And I rooted for Yusei, for whatever reason, a lot harder than I rooted for anybody else. And I personally really loved the monster designs of a lot of the different synchros that came out, right? The main deck monsters had a little bit of a cute factor still. Junk Synchron is adorable. A lot of the different plants and fairies and whatnot look cute. Even monsters like some of the black wings like Gale the Whirlwind, right? They have a little bit of a cuteness factor. But the synchros, they had might, they had fear, edge, they had majesty, elegance. They were just a spectacle to behold. And one of my favorite things is actually that Road Warrior that we just passed. The structure deck that it came in, the something toolbox, I think Synchro toolbox, the way that it was like slanted and angular at the top of the box instead of just being a plain rectangle shape. The circuit board pattern all over it. I love the aesthetic of this era. One of the big themes of the 5D show was bonds of friendship and these two Axel Stardust Dragons really encapsulate that moment. I was at a card shop that I honestly didn't visit a lot because they mostly cater to Magic the Gathering, but I had actually made 2 friends on Facebook. I had signed up for some, group pages for Yu-Gi-Oh fans, and 2 of them happened to be in Los Angeles, they said. So we made a little group chat, and I went to this store because they were going to be driving down to me. They lived in other cities nearby. And I met up with them for the very first time, but they were running a bit late, which is fine because I bought the Maze of Millennia booster pack, and I cracked open the whole pack, and the guy was like, I give people a lot of luck, so I think I let him pick the box, and I got 2 of the most expensive ultra rares. I got the Guardian Chimera Fusion, I got the Axel Stardust, which I really wanted, and then I pulled the collector rare version of that same Stardust. So and being able to share that moment with the new friends that I made and that I still from time to time duel with or talk about the card game with was something really magical. And here we get into the Xyz era now, and actually I didn't get to collect a lot of cards because I wasn't a fan of the Zexal anime. Now I can say that it's a really great show. I love the story of Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, and I did play a lot of card games in this era, like I mentioned. I played with the 4 friends I believe I made throughout the course of high school, plus a couple of other people that I only met once, but I got to duel them. However, I wasn't buying any packs. People weren't giving me any Xyz at the time, so I really just didn't have any, and the few that I did have didn't work with any of my decks, so I kind of just didn't care for them like that. And I didn't start to really feel any kind of way about Xyz monsters until after I sat down and went through the show, and I got to get in some of the appeal behind them, but I think what really made me appreciate Xyz monsters more was once they got added into Duel Links, and I was hopping online, playing other people, experiencing a small fraction of some of the speed of the game at that time with these monsters, because even hopping on Edo Pro in 2015, I wasn't playing a lot of Xyz monsters, and yeah, I started to really get it, and I think this was one of the most fun ways for me to build a deck. It was phenomenal. Now, it was a challenge dueling other people who did have Xyz strategies, because waiting for my synchros, I had to wait for specific monster combinations, and even more specific combinations if I was relying on my fusion deck. But this was definitely the moment where it clicked for me that, hey, I'm not the best duelist. There are people out there who can take any 2 monsters in their deck and they can make something really powerful. And that was also a moment that taught me how important spell cards were. I was relying on my Fissure and my Hammer Shot a lot more. I was relying on my copy of Bottomless Trap Hole or whatever have you. And Cyber Dragon Infinity here, right? A real pinnacle of the powerful design that Xyz monsters could have, was an ultimate example just of that era. That was one of the GOATs, and it was a card that I never thought I would own, so I'm really blessed to see that we're now in this era of reprints so that I can finally afford something like that, because a monster that was $60 and it fell down to what, like 40 something, 30 something, and that was affordable for people back then, I would have never owned a copy of this card. At some point though, I do want to really dive into maybe getting more storage space, because there's a lot of other cards that I want to collect, like some more of these Link monsters. I'm a big fan of the Cyberse, strategies, the Adignister deck, the Code Talker deck, and all the sort of generic Cyberse. And Soundling Great is a deck that, while I really loved it and I've always appreciated it, I never got into it just because before I got this suitcase even, I just didn't have room to store any more of my cards. And I prioritized buying all the different revolver strategies, all these Dark Dragon monsters, and I prioritized getting all these new Cyberse cards that came out every couple of months. So I just didn't have the room for the Sounding Greats, but now that I have this big storage case, maybe I can finally go back and pick some of those up. It's definitely a deck that I have a lot of respect for because I had a friend named Jeffrey who loved playing that deck, and watching him over the years get better with it and add new support cards to it, you know, throw in his different hand traps, his different interruptions. It was absolutely insane. And that combo that you saw of the Artifacts Link Monster and the Crystron Halki Fibrax, I would play that in my Synchron deck, and that was my one chance of being able to keep up with him and really fight back in an interruption sort of way and shut down a turn of his to give myself better opportunities to make strong, powerful combos to fight back with. So Link Monsters, I think my friends honestly got really tired of the game by this point. And that hope that they had initially of a big reset button faded into not a resentment, but an exhaustion with how constantly complicated the game was growing. And that was unfortunate, but you know, spending that time by myself, I said, I kind of accept this game for what it is, and it'll never be the same way that it was back in 2002 when we all started, and that's okay. And while I can still love my little horrible decks, my little anime-ass decks, there's a whole other world of this game that I can explore and appreciate. Stuff like this, right? And I think I appreciate some of these cards being anime cards that were also so incredibly powerful, because that really helped me bridge the gap between the two. And I said, yeah, I can love this game. Now that the token section is over, and I've had a chance to, you know, find my voice again because my throat is getting tired, we're finally moving on to the spells. And unfortunately, I don't think there's actually a lot for me to talk about with the spell cards themselves, but, you know, I'll do my best to continue telling you guys a couple of stories. Now that we're in the Joey section, actually, there's a spell card called Question, which should be coming up shortly, and I found it dead in the middle of the street, as torn up as it's about to appear. There it goes. I found it in that exact condition. Shout out to this gorgeous graceful dice, by the way, absolutely stunning. And it was really funny to me that I used to occasionally find cards on the way to my grandmother's house, of all places. We take a bus to another part of town, my mother and I, that is, and we get off and we're making our little 10-minute walk up to her apartment building, and about a block away from the building in the same street corner, I would find that one or two cards would be thrown away, kind of crumpled up and whatnot, and I just loved them so much that I was like, hey, you know, a card is a card, and you never know when this is going to be useful. And in the case of Question, it was really funny actually that it became a staple when I played with my friend Goner, because it was just one of those goofy cards that, here's a fake card, by the way. I don't know if you can see the little glimmer on it. You probably have to look at the top by the name, but yeah. But with the Question card, you know, it became one of those cards that Goner and I loved activating because it's so stupid and it's so goofy, and that's all there was to it, you know. When we're playing those with those fun decks, we called them, right? Character decks, really watered down versions of other existing strategies. That's where cards that you would never put in your deck ordinarily really get to shine, and those are the moments that make the best memories, especially using Question to get back a monster and sacrificing it off for a Jinzo or something. Hilarious. Olla de la Codicia, by the way. I have the occasional Spanish card like this, Caridad Gracil, or Graceful Charity. I don't know about the Graceful Charity itself, but I'm pretty sure all the Spanish cards I have were because of a structure deck that I bought, and I don't remember if I've told you guys this story already, but basically I was in line at a dollar store with my mom, running some errands, and they happened to have that one structure deck of Kaiba Evolution. That card came from it as well, that Soul Exchange spell card just now, and she bought it for me. She happened to have just enough money, even though, you know, we were kind of poor, and I was super grateful. And I get home and I open it and I'm like, oh, Mom, it's in Spanish. And she was like, I told you in the store it was in fucking Spanish. And I just didn't hear her because I was like, blue eyes, blue eyes, blue eyes. But yeah, you know, like I'll collect any kind of card really. I tend to opt for English because it's less for me to remember, but I know so many of these cards as effects just off the top of my head. And I guess that's honestly a sign of just how much I loved these cards, right? If you were to pause the video and quiz me, or if you were to send me a snapshot of any card that you see in this video and say, what does this do? I would bet 9 times out of 10 I could tell you, just no hesitation, off rip like that. There's nothing else for me to say about that. I just really love it. There's another story that I can tell you though. I mentioned that spell cards were really important for me trying to get advantages in the duel, right? And I'll just tell you 2 duel stories of mine from school. There is one kid, I can't remember what his name was. I can like almost exactly picture his face though, right? He was a tall kid. We both were for our age. He had short curly hair. I believe he was Hispanic. I'm pretty sure he spoke Spanish. And I met him because I was watching him duel one day. We never had the same class as each other or anything like that. I don't even know if we were in the same grade. And he looked bummed out because he was losing the duel. And the other guy kind of like makes fun of him and walks off, which was like, okay, rude, whatever. And I turned to this kid, I'll call him Billy, I don't know what his name is, and I turned to him, I'm like, hey Billy, like, you don't have to be so sad about losing a duel, you know, just come back and do better on the next one and then you can win, right? And he's like, no Eric, you don't get it, like, I always lose to this guy. I don't have a single chance in beating him in a duel. I'll never win. And I was like, no man, because you know, since we're here looking at Jaden's cards, right? I was on my protagonist shit. I was like, no, dude, all you have to do is believe in your cards. And I don't remember if I dueled the guy for him, but I really helped him see, like, holy crap, my deck can actually do something. And I'm like, yeah, man, you just need to trust what your cards are capable of. And it's that simple from there. And he's like, thank you, man. And we started dueling every day after school. I had that rock structure deck with Exod, the Master of the Guard, in it. And I would kick his ass. And it was crazy because then the first time I beat him in a duel, he gave me a card. And I was like, no, dude, you don't have to do that. Ultimate rare, by the way. Super polymerization. Pretty cool. I know it's hard to tell, but it's probably the sleeve. I don't know. I couldn't unsleeve this. I wouldn't dare. But, yeah, you know, he gives me a card, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And he says, you want a duel? When my friends and I play, we play for keepsies. And I was like, holy shit, I wish you told me that before. I might not have done this, right? And I would just keep dueling him and taking his cards. And then one day, he beat me. Even with some of his cards missing, he won a duel against me. And I was like, you know what, man? Even though I get to choose the card, I'm going to give you a really good one. And I gave him the Guardian Sphinx. When you flip it face up, you get to send all of their monsters back to the hand. And that's the monster that was allowing me to win the duel so many times against him. And I was like, here you go, right? Because in my mind, I have to be like 8, 9 years old. In my mind, I'm thinking, he doesn't know how to use oh, perfect. Zane is on the screen, right? Zane and Cyrus, power bond, right? Just because you know how to use the card doesn't mean you know how to play the card. That is exactly what I was thinking when I gave this man Guardian Sphinx. So I'm like, it doesn't even matter that it's in his deck. He won't know how to use it properly. And then he summons it on the next time that I play him, and he sends all my monsters back to the hand. And I basically just got Mirror Force, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my god, I lose. And I just couldn't. So I gave him another card, and I had to make up some sort of excuse to never duel him again. And I was like, oh yeah, you know, like, I'm just so busy. I have to do my homework before I get home, or my mom's gonna whoop me, or something like that, you know, which, like, may or may not have been true. Who cares? But it was funny. And then I think he moved schools because I never saw him again shortly after that. But he would tell me, like, hey, dude. Yeah, I think he did move schools because I ran into him. I was looking for him one day. And he was like, yeah, man, I'm leaving, but I wanted to look for you and tell you, like, thank you for helping me be confident again and having so many great duels with me. Like I enjoy this now. It's really fun for me now. And I'm like, you're welcome, Billy. Love these fakes, by the way. I can't reiterate that enough. That looks gorgeous. Another duel, actually. I believe this is the end of the GX section of spell cards. So as we approach the 5D section, I can tell you a story about that, right? So I'm in maybe 4th grade. I'm in like 4th grade in 2009, or before that, 2008, whatever, who cares, right? And I had a friend named Brian who I dueled a lot whenever I could, because that was the first time I was allowed to go to somebody's house, and he happened to live like 1 or 2 blocks away from my apartment. And so I convinced my mom to let me go visit on my days off of school. I'd come over, I'd eat, and I'd duel with him. And you know, he actually has a brand new deck. Brian skipped a grade and I wasn't allowed to, so he was in 5th grade and he was dueling one of his classmates, right? I don't remember the boy's name, but whatever, you know, he was older than the both of us. And Brian got his ass beat. And I kid you not, I swear to you, I did this so often with people. I'm like, don't worry about it. You just need to believe in your cards and then you can win. And just like Billy, he was like, you don't get it. I've always lost to this guy. He's beaten me every time. It's not possible. He has a really broken card. You cannot beat him. I'm like, no one card is so powerful that it's unbeatable. Every card has a weakness, right? You just need to draw the right cards and know how to play them. He's like, you don't get it, right? He plays a removal deck, and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And this guy played a deck focused around Dimensional Fissure. So every time a monster went to the graveyard, it was gone from the game permanently. You could never bring it back. And I was like, oh my god, that's crazy. And I take Brian's deck, which is also just a structure deck at that point in time. He left his other stuff at home, and he decided, because he was an intelligent person unlike myself, he was like, I want to build a deck that's focused on just one singular strategy, so I'm going to take this starter deck and over time I'm going to improve it. I'm like, okay, you know, and I think he had synchros in it, but I didn't know what the fuck synchros were or what they did yet, right? Because I hadn't watched 5Ds. So I just said, keep those over there. I don't need those cheap tricks. So now I'm fucked. And I remember stalling out. I don't know how. I don't know what the hell I drew, but I'm stalling this guy. He can't destroy my monsters. He's getting really frustrated. I managed to get a Magna Drago on the field. Oh, shout out to this Dragon Ravine, right? Talking about dragon cards. I get a Magna Drago monster out onto the field, and it's only 1400 attack, but when it does manage to do damage, it gets stronger every single turn. And I had that Synchro Boost spell card that passed earlier to power up my dragon a little more, and he couldn't kill me, I couldn't kill him. And next thing you know, our 30-minute lunch period was over. And I gave Brian back his deck, and I said, you see, man, you just have to believe in your cards. Look how pissed off he is. Look how triggered he is. And he's like, holy shit. Like, you did it, dude. What the what? How is that even possible? This game, you know, this anime, the video games, all of that, really taught me not just how to, you know, keep my head down, not keep my head down, but how to lock in and stay focused, right? And how to pick a goal and just focus on nothing but that. But it taught me how to inspire people, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was kind of just repeating the lessons that the show spat in our face every, you know, Saturday at 10 a.m. Central. But, you know, it did something, and I liked the way that made me feel. I liked that people who were once frustrated were finding ways to enjoy this game, you know, because they were just sitting down and saying, hey, it's okay. And I guess as a greater life lesson, that was us as children self-soothing, which is incredibly mature for a bunch of 9-year-olds or however old we were. We were able to stop and say, this is a very frustrating situation. This is a situation that is hurting my feelings and, you know, making me not happy and not having fun. But all I need to do is step outside of myself and say everything's gonna be all right. You know, there's always gonna be a next time. Or stop and say, hey, it's just a game. You win some, you lose some kind of shit. And then we were able to get on with ourselves. I think that's really beautiful. So, you know, to Mr. Takahashi, rest in peace. I am forever grateful for you teaching me these lessons, because I feel like I was not only able to enjoy such a beautiful game that much more because you taught me this at such an early age, but conversely, because you taught me this at such an early age, I feel like I'm a better man for it, I'm a better human being for it, and I have been blessed with the ability to help other people see that they can be better people as well, right? I'm able to pass this on to my friends, to my relatives, to strangers who are going through a hard time, and I'm able to pass these lessons on to my future children, you know, God willing. And it's all because a man had a vision. And ironically, you know, this isn't what he wanted originally. He just wanted to make a horror manga, and it turned into this gigantic billion-dollar multimedia IP. And that culminated with touching hundreds of thousands of lives, touching millions of lives. And that too is by itself just really beautiful. That's about all I have to say at the moment. You know, we're going through these link cards, and up next you're gonna see all of my different staples. So I'm just gonna go ahead and let the music ride. Hey, it's me again, and really quick, this Raigeki right here, this one, I just wanted to say that I won this in a contest, and I'm really proud of that. I had joined a Facebook group, and somebody was doing contests every once in a while where it was, hey, go ahead and answer this question in the comments, and I'll pick a random person and send you the card. And I won on my very first attempt, and I left the group after that because I was like, you know, I'm not gonna ruin my luck. But that was funny. I guess pivoting on that too, looking at all these powerful staple cards, that was the moment that my friends and I realized, like, hey, you know, having a really powerful card or having an expensive card really changes things, because now in terms of the people in our group, you become the bar, you become the measure, because you have a level of power that we just don't have any access to. And holding that card, I was like, holy shit, yeah, you're right, I kind of control the game now. So here are some of my many beloved trap cards, and like I said, I really mostly use these to stall. Actually, I do want to talk about this coming up. The widespread ruin here, you can see it's like a grid. It's like a 3x3 grid with swirls in it. I can't find any information on that card. I'm pretty sure it's fake. I got it outside of a vending machine from a vending machine outside of an El Pollo Loco across the street from my city college. It was funny. I was just on a walk in the area. I had broke up with my girlfriend or something at that time. I was really sad, trying to clear my mind, and I was like, holy crap, there's Yu-Gi-Oh cards in here. And I ran home 2 miles to grab some quarters. And I ran back because I was like, I don't know if they put the machine inside when they close up. I don't know what time El Pollo Loco closes. And I ran back, and I had enough quarters to buy 3 cards, 2 or 3 cards. I got that. I got the Javelin Beetle Ritual, and I don't remember what the last one was. It was so bad that I threw it away. But when I tried to look it up, I couldn't find anything on it. So if anybody out there has information on these swirly patterned cards, let me know. Why a Spanish restaurant in English-speaking United States sold Japanese cards, I'll never know. It makes me wonder too now, is that what fake Yu-Gi-Oh cards in Japan look like? Are they so much better than us that even their fake cards are higher quality than our fake cards? I have no idea. Looking at these Destiny heroes, man, I think of this guy that I played at a locals the very first time that I went to one. He was a huge Destiny hero fan, but he used to play, I don't think it was Dragon Rulers. He played a deck that used level 8s though, and I just remember he played that Hieratic Dragon, the rank 8 that could destroy cards, because that was absolutely whooping my ass. But he got really frustrated. We were just playing for fun because I had no chance of qualifying for anything, right? And on my Yusei shit with my trap cards, right, I'm top decking really quickly. I ran out of resources immediately because he got over my Synchro monster with no effort. And I top deck the Unknown Synchron. So I special summon it in defense mode. And he's like, okay, whatever. I use my trap card to destroy it. And I flip over, I think it was Remote Destruction. We'll see it here, actually, now that we're in the Yusei section of the traps. Oh, there it goes. I use that trap card to say, hey, since you target me with the Destruction card effect, I get to blow up something else on your field instead. And he's like, what the fuck? I've never seen this before. And I was like, you've never watched episode 12, right? So, oh my god, I'm cringing saying this. And then he's like, okay, fine, whatever, I attack, Threatening Roar. Damn it, I attack, Waboku. Damn it, I attack, Mirror Force. He's like, dude, what the fuck, right? I get another monster on field, and he's like, you're stupid, that's game. I attack, Defense Draw. And he's just like, what the actual fuck? And I just remember feeling so proud of myself. And he's screaming at the top of his lungs, and we're just doing an exhibition match, and everyone stops what they're doing to come see what's happening. And he's like, it's just an Unknown Synchron. Like, it has 0 stats, just kill it. And he's like, I can't. It's been on the field for 12 turns. I top deck every single trap card that I had in my deck. It was absolutely beautiful. It was the best thing ever. And then I flip over Power Frame because I was like, okay, fine, I'll go ahead and let you win. I switch it into attack mode. He's like, finally, attack, Power Frame. Now your attack is negated and we have the same attack points. He's like, what the fuck? He obviously won the duel because I can only keep that up for so long, but yeah, shout out to that guy. I gave him my Elemental Hero Phoenix Enforcer because he was collecting every Destiny Hero card in a binder. And good stuff, man. I try to find ways to have fun in any situation, and just to enjoy any kind of game if ever possible. because being bitter and being salty, that's just no way to live life, you know? Yeah. Now we're taking a look at the Arc 5 era trap cards here, and I started playing a Performapal deck around this time, right? And Wall of Disruption, oh my god, the stories I have about this trap. I had a little bit of a cult going on, right? I may have already mentioned to you in this stream that I made friends with some guys at my college, and they started inviting me over to teach them how to play the game, or just to help reintroduce it to them, right? And we would play so often. And one day, we did a lot of 2-on-2s or 4-man free-for-alls, and I flip over Wall of Disruption, and everyone's attack points goes to 0. And they're like, what the fuck is this? And I say, can you believe nobody plays this trap card right now? And they're like, but it's so good. My monsters are useless now. Like, I can't swing over anything. And I used it again and again, and I only had 1 copy, but they inspired me to buy 2 more. I went out and I found some more copies. And so they were just so frustrated and annoyed that one of them went online and he bought a copy for himself. And so we're playing against him, and all of a sudden he's like, I use Wall of Disruption, and we're like, no. Another gorgeous fake, by the way. Pyramid of Light, man, what a bad movie. But anyways, yeah, like, he went out and he was like, fuck it, if you can't beat him, join him. And everyone was cursing him out at first. And then next thing you know, everybody had Wall of Disruption, and I started this thing accidentally, and everyone was like, we're a part of your cult, because I had told them a story of when a friend of mine, Goner, in high school, passed around Seal of Orichalco's cards to everybody, and he started a cult where they would duel people on his behalf, and really silly stuff. So, you know, they were trying to reenact a little bit of that magic. The Mask of Restrict. Oh man, this is a good one right here. So I went to this youth center. It was a charity drive that they had, you know, every Christmas, where families would line up and their children would get toys, and things were lined up into different sections where it's like, if you grab from this section, you can only grab one thing, etc. And I had grabbed a singular item of this, like, augmented reality driving game headset. It was really, really cool. And all the way at the exit, there was a table I didn't see at all that had Yu-Gi-Oh packs on it. And I was so heartbroken that I was begging. I was like, I'll give you back the headset if you let me open up 1 booster pack, please. I love Yu-Gi-Oh. And there was a woman there who is friends with my mom, and they were talking to her, and she was like, I didn't see anything, just take 1 pack, it's okay. No, none of the kids are even looking at these because they're so interested in just the toys, right? And, you know, I was incredibly grateful she let me take both. And it happened to be Labyrinth of Nightmare, I believe, was the set. And so I get home and I open my booster pack, and that was the card. I pulled an ultra rare out of a singular booster, which was just insane, right? And, you know, growing up, I had forgotten about it, and anytime I found it again in my collection and I looked back on it, I was like, man, this is a really bad card. How am I supposed to do my tribute summons, you know? How am I supposed to get out some of my boss monsters? What the hell? And, you know, as fate would have it, later down the line, it actually became really relevant as kaijus became a thing, and, you know, Mask of Restrict went up significantly in price. It started to see experimentation in the meta scene, or the anti-meta scene, I guess you could say. So yeah, you know, good thing that I didn't get rid of it and think it was a truly useless card, because I did tell myself, I was like, one day it will have a purpose, I just don't know what that is yet. And here we are. You know, you might really catch somebody off guard with a Mask of Restricts if they have that kind of deck. So little me had no idea that he had hit big. And that's really my history with the trap cards. As we come to the end of these staples, so many of these traps have turned around so many duels for me. It's magnificent. What's this? Oh, I know what this is. This is my Legendary Collection Kaiba box. A separate box where I exclusively keep, as you could guess, cards related to the one and only Seto Kaiba. And I mentioned that I had some Spanish cards, and here it is. The Spanish Blue Eyes, the Dragón de Ojos Azul, I believe. You know, a duelist who's this legendary, I can't just keep his cards, you know, in the same box as everybody else's. I have to put them here. And this box itself actually has a really great story behind it. There was a local card shop that we had like a mile plus away. And even though it was far, you know, for us, you know, having to walk there in the blistering heat on roads with no shade, we would still go because we were supporting a small business and we were getting some really great cards whenever we felt like it after school. And one day I go, I have a little bit of money, I'm like 19, and he has this brand new product, the Legendary Collection Kaiba edition. And I just had to buy it because my friend used to always buy the Yugi edition, and that was back when I just couldn't afford anything, right? So to make up for me missing the Yugi and the Joey, I had to spend exorbitant amounts of money on the Kaiba. Not a lot, you know, I bought a couple of boxes, and I ended up saying, hey, you know, I want to host a tournament. So since I was watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Reigns and they had skills just like they do in Speed Duel or in the Duel Links video game, I sat down and I thought about the decks that my friends have, and I came up with 6 skills for each of them. Some of them generic, some tailor-made specifically for their archetype that they like to play. And I put these skills into top loaders and I gave everybody one, and I set up a website where, you know, you have the Kaiba Corp hacking thing that's probably playing right now, and it was an official invitation. The link to the website was an invitation to my tournament, and I gave them a date like 2 months in advance or something like that. I made sure that I called off for that day, and I invited everybody over to my house to duel each other, but I gave them an opportunity every single day to earn more skills. So if you picked a day where you wanted to duel me, and if you beat me, I would give you skills, right? And we could duel online, we could duel in person, whatever, and I'll show you what the skill is, and then I'll come to you as soon as humanly possible, no matter what I had going on in my life, and I'll come drop off that top loader for you. And that allowed people to be able to rebuild their decks and say, hey, you know, I don't have this card that I can't afford to make my deck optimal, but thanks to this skill, I don't need that. I can work around and build my deck this way instead. Or I can take out these cards that I normally feel like I have to, but my skill will compensate. And, you know, I was really, before Duel Links ever did it, I was creating skills that would make decks much more playable, just to give everybody this awesome experience. And it was great, and everyone came over. There was 8 people. I also had a section on the website for duel puzzles, so I would create a couple of puzzles. I had my girlfriend, who barely knows how to play the game at all, test them, and it took her like 2 hours, but she eventually solved every one. So now I'm like, perfect, now I know it's possible for everyone else to solve these too. And if you sent me the solution, you know, over text, over voice message, however you felt like doing it, then you can earn a skill that way too, leading up to the day before the tournament starts. And everybody shows up, we have a blast, we're all really engaged looking at one another's games happen. We almost didn't want to play all at the same time because we wanted to enjoy every match, but we had so much time in the day, and like a boss, I had a date, so we had to wrap it up ASAP, right? It was hilarious. And I gave out a couple of packs and a couple of boxes of Legendary Collection Kaiba as the prize. And you know, some people won an Ash Blossom, some people got expensive cards that they still have today, some people got staple cards that they were able to put into their other already existing decks, and it was awesome. I know Jonathan, you know, from here on the channel, he got a Delinquent Duo. It was some great stuff, really great stuff. And here is the $50 Kaiba Corp Edition deck box, and of course, I have the 25th anniversary OCG Kaiba deck, and those first 3 cards after the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon were anime exclusive cards. They had never been printed before, and you could only obtain them if you purchased this briefcase that came with this deck inside. And it's 1 copy of every single card Kaiba has ever used, all in ultra rare. So not just a shiny photo, but I know it might be hard to see the kanji, but gold lettering as well. And man, this is just an amazing work of art here. This is truly the bread and butter of the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise right here. The man, the myth, the legend. And I can't explain to you how the childlike excitement just runs over my body going through these. I'm gonna take perfect care of them, don't worry. They are a sleeved deck. I just, like I said in the beginning of the video, I took off the sleeves just so that it looks a little bit nicer on camera. And that's my collection here. This is a lot of stuff that I, built up to collect. This is me healing my inner child. This is me treating myself to all the nice things that I couldn't experience before. And just so many memories between me and my loved ones in this little cardboard box. Some good stuff. But if I had a Kaiba box, you know that I just had to have a second box for the one and only King of Games, Yugimoto, and the Spirit of the Pharaoh, Atem. There's not a whole lot I can say about these. Everybody knows what these cards are. If you don't know anything else about the rest of the franchise, here is the unstoppable Exodia, the Forbidden One. And I have all of my non-effect monsters here, my effect monsters, my spells, my traps. I have fusions and rituals that the Yugis have played, or support that's come out for the different archetypes that they've used throughout the years. Yugi's gotten so much support that he needed an even bigger box for these cards compared to what Kaiba has. And I even have the Egyptian god related support cards in here at the end as well. So I've talked your ear off enough. I know this is an incredibly long video. I really just wanted to thank you guys so much. First of all, thank you Chromek for suggesting this video in the first place. You're awesome, brother. Oh, sorry, I have to show this off really quick. The Adidas Dark Magician. And I know what you're thinking, right? I already showed this off before. I bought a pair of Adidas that came with this super rare card inside of it. I made a whole video on it, but that's in storage. I got another copy of the Dark Magician because I have to have one to put in my deck, right? But yeah, enough of my arrogance, enough showing off. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm gonna just go ahead and let the rest of this video play. Enjoy the music, enjoy the nostalgia trip, enjoy the gorgeous card art and all the glittering glam of these shiny cardboards. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.